friends, it's Jamie from Play to Learn Preschool. I am live with you this afternoon. I'm sorry that we missed our live video yesterday. I sent a text out that said, I'll be live in 15 minutes. Join me as we talk about letters. And then like 2 minutes after I sent the text, I had a ring on the doorbell and our 3 o'clock plumbing appointment was there like at 1:15. So we still have a total plumbing disaster here at my house. We actually didn't even know we had a leak. We got a letter from the water company that said something like, hey, we noticed that you're losing 30 gallons an hour. We don't know where the leak is coming from. And it's outside, like on my water main line. So they are replacing the entire water main line from the street into our home. So we actually haven't been that inconvenienced because the water's been on and we don't have any like leaks in the house or anything, but it's kind of a pain in the neck. And my whole closet behind the camera is emptied out into the classroom. So pray for me, people. It's crazy here. Anyway, I wanted to jump on and talk with you a little bit about letters. It's a really big topic, but I thought we could just take a stab at it and get started. People ask me a lot, how do you teach the letters? Hey, Wanda, what order do you teach them in? Do you teach the letters? And so I thought we would just try to talk about that just for a few minutes. Hi, Katie. Water problems are no fun. We're actually not having any problems. Until I got the letter, I didn't know we had a problem. So it's all good. The worst part of it is having to clean out the closet, which, as you all pointed out yesterday, I needed to do anyway. So, oh goodness, the top of my Christmas wish list is a new water main line. Anyway, it's no big deal. It's just the joys of home ownership. So, if you have questions as we're kind of talking about letters and how to teach letters to preschoolers, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I'll try to answer what we do here in our classroom or what I know about literacy, learning, and early emergent reading. And if I don't get to it in the video, then I'll try to answer it on the comments. So, all right, letters. Here's the thing in education. We always have these big shifts in thinking every, decade or so, this big pendulum in the way that our thinking goes. When I was in college in the 90s, it was all balanced literacy. Literacy-enriched environment, they'll get it just through osmosis. And then it kind of swings to, we need to do more phonics, and it swings back to balanced literacy. And there's always this constant shift in educational thinking, not just with teaching letters, but it's in every single aspect of education. This big pendulum swings back and forth. This is right and that is wrong. Nope, that is right and this is wrong, back and forth. And the truth, I think, like in all things, is that somewhere in the middle is probably the sweet spot, right? So I think that there are no right or wrong answers when it comes to teaching literacy. But there are some things, that the research shows are more effective than others. And we just try to find that sweet spot in this pendulum swing. So the other thing that I wanted to say, and I put it in another video, the one that I had to delete, is I think there's something more important than teaching letters. And that is our relationships with the students. And our relationship with the students and the environment that we create in our classrooms supersedes any other learning, content learning, academic learning, thematic units, anything else we can teach. And so I just want to preface that with, I think if we're having this really warm, loving, wonderful relationship with our students, and we're responsive to them in the classroom and we're meeting their needs, then the rest of the stuff sort of falls into place. So I don't want my video to be taken as word, right? Like this is the way we have to do it, because that's just not how it works. We really do have to accommodate the students. We have to know our children. How do they learn? What do they already know? Where are they coming in? And just really meet them where they are with a lot of love. And if we're doing that, we're doing a good job. Having said that, I do want to talk just a little bit about letters and the best ways to teach them. So the research shows, of course, that students learn best in context. So on the first week of school, holding up an A and saying, this is A is for apple. Everybody trace the A. Everybody say, good, we've learned the A. Check. Move on to the next week. This is the second week of school. Boys and girls, this is the letter B. B is for button. Button. Check. That's not how students learn. That's not how they learn. They learn in context. Primarily, our preschoolers are learning about literacy through their names. And so they're going to all come in with a different knowledge of the alphabet, right? So the students whose name starts with an L, she's gonna know the L. And the little guy whose name starts with an O, he's gonna know the O. And so they start to learn it in the context of what's important to them, primarily their names. So we do a lot of literacy learning with our names in our classroom. I've shared this in other videos about how the little kids, our preschoolers, do a name activity as their arrival when they come in the morning. You know, they're doing their puzzles or they're matching up the names. And all of our students, preschoolers and pre-K students, do a little name song. These are gonna be backwards because I'm on the selfie cam on Facebook. But I've shared this in another video too. I'll leave a link to it when we're done. But we have these little name songs for each theme or each season. And they all have to do with the children's names. So this is, I put these little cookies in a jar and we pull them out and we say, who can read the names in the cookie jar? We can read the names in the cookie jar. And I pull one out. Let's see, who could this be? And they'll say, Lena. I say, yes, Lena's name is in the cookie jar. Let's see, who could this be? They all yell, Jack, because they see that J. You're right, Jack's name is in the cookie jar. Let's see, who could this be? And they all yell, Avery. Good, A for Avery. Avery's name is in the cookie jar. And we just keep pulling them out. And they're starting to recognize their friends' names based on that first letter. And so that is the most important way, or I think the most effective way to teach them letters is through names, through environmental print. So they see that T and they know it's Target, or the M and they know it's McDonald's. Those are the ways that they're going to learn the easiest. And then the other way of thinking is that pendulum. You know, the one way is that they'll just learn it. And then the other way is, you know, we have to teach them. If we don't teach them the L, they're never going to know the L. And that's not entirely true. You know, they'll pick up on letters around them if they're in a literacy-rich environment. So the problem that I see with letter of the week is that two things. First, we assume that a student is only going to learn the letter if we teach it to them, which is not a correct assumption. For most students, they're picking up literacy all over the place. They see a sign in the room, you know, that says open and closed, and they learn that the O is the open side and the C is the closed sign. They learn the letters of the family members' names. We read a book and they see letters in the book that they recognize. And so for us to think as teachers that the only way they're going to learn their letters is if we explicitly teach them, I think is a mistake. The second problem I think that we have with letter of the week is that some teachers, when they do a letter of the week curriculum, feel that everything they do has to revolve around that letter. So if we're studying the letter B, then we're going to do art with buttons and, you know, the blocks. We're going to only play with the blocks because they start with a B. And in the sensory table, we're going to have bubbles or, you know, something. Everything has to do with a B, which the only person in the classroom who understands what's going on in that circumstance is the teacher. Those 3- and 4-year-olds, they don't know why they're playing with bubbles in the sensory table. They don't make the connection that it's because we're learning all about the letter B that week. That's not how their brains are working. Truly, it's not. And so for a teacher to really put herself out and say, oh, I've got to think of a craft project that has to do with the letter B because this is B week and it's also blue week, and so it has to be a blue craft that starts with B, I think that's not the best way to approach our planning. So for me, learning the letters is a skill. It's an objective that fits in with whatever unit or theme we're teaching. And so we don't have to have everything in the room starts with a B. You know, we've got a B thing in the dramatic play, we've got a B thing at the art easel, we've got a B thing at this and B thing that, because it's B week. I think that that's a very antiquated and an ineffective way to plan and to teach. Instead, I like to plan units or themes, and then we introduce the letters, you know, just as a skill within that theme. And like I've said before, not all of my activities fit with the theme, and that's true of the letters. So you're probably now wondering, okay, so do you teach them or do you not teach them? And the answer is yes, we do introduce a letter to the students about each week. So the truth is there's 26 letters of the alphabet. We want them to know the letter name. We want them to start to understand that that letter makes a sound. And then we would also like to start to have them attempt to make letter-like symbols in their writing. And so there's 26 letters and we have our kids for about 32 weeks. So if you want to do the math, it's about a letter a week. But I don't call it a letter of the week curriculum because nothing else in my classroom really revolves around that letter. So we've talked before about our circle time, and I do circle time 3 times with my students. When they first arrive, we do a little morning meeting circle time where we do those name songs. And I give them a little rundown of centers, or I introduce one center, one idea. We do one in the middle where Gemma's taking them to the bathroom to wash their hands before snack, and I'm introducing a mini lesson that has to do with our theme. Those are some of those circle time lessons and activities that I've shared with you in other videos. And then the third one, at the very end of the day, we do a story time, like a literacy circle time. And for my older kids only, not my 3-year-olds, because we're not there yet. They're learning literacy through their names and through words in the classroom, but they're not quite to the point where they're ready for a longer, circle time for me to introduce a letter. But with my older kids, the kids who are going to kindergarten in August, so less than a year from now, I do introduce about a letter a week. And we practice lots of different things during that circle time, that last one, before I read the story. Some days I'll give them whiteboards and we just practice making lines. We might practice vertical lines one day, horizontal lines, squiggly lines up and down. We might practice zigzag lines. We might practice circles or squares on the whiteboards. Some days we'll do some kind of a little literacy, like letter activity, where I might have them use a dry erase marker, and I'll give them a page and they'll just practice tracing the letters. Some days they'll make it with dots, the letters, and it's just like 5 minutes. One time each week though, I do like to introduce a letter. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best way for them to learn it, or it's the only way, or that if I didn't do this, they wouldn't learn the letter, but it's a nice way for us to practice making the letter sound, and then I introduce to them how to write it. So one day each week, I pull out this old, this is high tech, right? This old pretzel jar, and I call it my sound box. And inside, we've placed some items that all start with the same letter. And so they love this. They actually get really excited when they see it out. They say, I wonder which letter it's going to be. I wonder which letter it's going to be. So I make a big deal of opening it. We pull the items out of the sound box and try to figure out from these clues which blow up letters in here. So I've showed it before. I think I can actually show it over here. Like over here on my wall, do you see those blow up letters? So I actually blow one up, we inflate one each week. And this is how we do it out of the sound box. So, I pull something out, I'm like, oh, what is this? They're like, oh, it's a newspaper. Good, we've got a newspaper. Let's see what's next. Oh, it's a necktie, And I'll lay everything out in front of them. What's next? Oh, this is a necklace. I probably will wear it because they think that's hysterical. And what's this one? Oh, it's a number 9. Which letter do you think is in my sound box? Newspaper, necktie, necklace, 9. And then they all might yell out, N. So let's see if you're right. And so I pull out this inflatable letter. It's deflated in the box, but I've already inflated it for you. And then we blow it up to see if they're right. And I'll just say, you're right, you were right, you guessed that all those words start with the letter N. And we sing the little like leapfrog, The N says the N says every letter makes a sound, the N says and I hang it up on the wall. And then the next day we might practice writing it, like I said, but I do introduce one each week. I'm not saying, like I said, that this is the only way or the first way that they've learned about the letter N, but it's a nice way to kind of break it down into, like, this is the N, this is the sound that it makes, and then we practice writing it. And I do notice that after I've introduced them, that the students will practice, over at the writing center, like, oh, look, I made an N, or, if they're sitting at the, at the literacy table or the literacy center and they find the N, they're like, oh, that's the N from our sound box. I'll say, yeah, you're right, but it's not that every other activity in my classroom is the letter N. And I think that's what's different between teaching the letters and sort of breaking it down to these manageable chunks for the kids and doing a whole letter of the week curriculum, like, well, it's N week, so we can only, use noodles in the sensory table, and we have to, I don't know, I don't think like that. We have to do something with N at the art center, and, everything has to be N, 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 and that's not it, because it doesn't make sense for the kids. So I got the blow up letters. I know, aren't they awesome? Actually from my Scholastic bonus points like a long time ago, and they don't carry them anymore. They're learning resources, and if you Google them or Amazon I'll just see if I can find a link. They don't really make them anymore. You can, blow up letters. I'll see if I can find a link, but they might have, like used versions of them or something. It's just a nice little way. You could just do a big paper letter, or an alphabet sign. I do want to say, people have asked, do you teach the letters in order? And the answer to that is no also. Hey Wanda, I guessed your question. I like to teach them in the order, like easiest to hardest, in terms of two things. The first, the easiest to write, because we're incorporating it with those dry erase boards and trying to get them to write the letters. And the second way is the easiest sounds. So for me, I always start with like T, because it only makes one sound, and it's 2 straight lines, super simple. L only makes one sound, 2 straight lines. Start with H, only makes one sound, easy 3 straight lines. E is an easy one, it makes 2 sounds, so kind of save that one. V is a nice easy one, 2 straight lines, only makes 1 sound. And then I start to add letters that have curved parts, like the P, so it has a straight line and a curved line, which is harder for the students to write, but it only makes 1 sound. And the B, straight line, 2 bumps. And so I try to work from easiest to write and make the sound to hardest. We always end with like S, which is a really hard one because they can't get that around and back, and some of the harder letters like that. So Mylar balloons are a good idea. That is I agree, it's pretty cool. So that's how I teach letters with our pre-K kids, 1 approximately each week, but in context of the classroom, it's not our primary theme. And like I said though, whatever you're doing, as long as you're doing it with love and you're meeting your students' needs and you've got that warm relationship with them, I think you're doing the right thing. So leave me your comments about what you think and I will check back. I also want to let you know today is the last day of the TPT site-wide sale, and so I have a few more of these little jump drives, and they are on sale for 10% off, so you can get another $25 off if you'd like to get one. I have a few left. So have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.